Arc'teryx, Patagonia, and Rab. Arguably three of the biggest names when it comes to technical outerwear. But how do they stack up and where do they shine? Today, we're talking about the Arc'teryx Cerium, the Rab Microlight Alpine, and the Patagonia Nano Puff. First off, we're gonna start with the warmth to weight ratio. The Arc'teryx Cerium comes in at right about 12 ounces, and it definitely packs a punch with that 850 fill down and that Coreloft synthetic insulation right around the shoulders and the cuffs. It has a bit of moisture resistance due to the synthetic insulation being in those shoulders and cuff areas, you know, where you might get a little bit wet, especially on the top of that jacket when you're outside. But it has that ultralight 15 denier, like really delicate outer shell as well. So, you know, it's not really abrasion resistant, definitely gets tears on it. You can see this is my jacket. There's a lot of different types of spots on this jacket that I've taped up over the years. You know, this is like a little bit more of that delicate jacket with that face fabric. So it's really just all about keeping you super warm in dry conditions for the most part. Now the Patagonia Nano Puff here also comes in right at about 12 ounces. So super lightweight, exactly the same weight as the Cerium, but it doesn't pack down as tightly as the Cerium, again, because the Cerium has that 850 fill down, and the Nano Puff is a completely synthetic jacket. This comes with that synthetic Primaloft Gold Eco insulation. So this thing does a really good job of moisture reduction, of moisture wicking. You know, if you're out there really getting after it, and you need something that's gonna keep you really warm in a super lightweight package. Maybe not as warm as the Cerium or the Microlight Alpine, but definitely gonna keep you drier and do a better job of dealing with that sweat. So with synthetic insulation, we've talked about this in a few different videos, you know, this is going to still perform when wet, and down will not perform when wet. So that's really the biggest difference between these two jackets, I would say. You know, it's not the same warmth to weight ratio as something like the Microlight Alpine, but it's definitely more reliable if the weather does turn ugly on you. Last but certainly not least, we have the Rab Microlight Alpine coming in at 16.5 ounces. So it's nearly 7 ounces or 6 ounces heavier than the other two jackets that we're talking about today. But this comes with a 700 fill hydrophobic coated down. You can see it's a little bit more of that like puffy jacket. So it is really compressible due to it having the down instead of synthetic material on the inside. But it is a step above the Cerium because it is a hydrophobic down, so it does a better job in weather, in rain. While all kind of providing a similar warmth, I would say the Cerium keeps you the most warm, the Microlight Alpine keeps you the second most warm, and the Nano Puff keeps you the least warm of these three, but that's why it's better for higher output activities. All right, so now we're just gonna do a little comfort and fit, and to do that, I'm just gonna try the jackets on. These are all my jackets, so I know how they fit, but we'll just show you here in this video. These are all larges. I'm coming in right at about 6 feet tall, 180 pounds. So the Cerium here, you can see it's like most things in the Arc'teryx line. It's got that really nice athletic, fitted feel to it. It doesn't hug you anywhere, or it's not tight in any unnecessary spaces for sure. You can see there's not a ton of lift when I bring my arms up, but by no means is there a ton of extra room in this jacket. So the way that Arc'teryx cuts their jackets, it's a perfect fit if you are a large. It's a perfect fit if you are an extra large. So if you're right around my height and weight, 6 foot, 180, large is the size Cerium for you, for sure. You know, there's no wasted space. It's perfect for layering because there is like a little bit of room in there. And already, you know, I can just feel this down doing its job and keeping that warmth all on the inside. So if I was doing a lot of sweating, this jacket wouldn't perform super well because it would not only, you know, what wets from the outside also wets from the inside. So if I'm super sweaty and wet, it's also gonna make that down clump, and I can already feel that in here in the store. So just something to take note of again as we continue to go back to down and waterproofing. But yeah, super trim, really good athletic cut on pretty much everything here from Arc'teryx. And then the Cerium is super simple. It just comes with those two front pockets here, no internal pockets at all. Again, It's what you come to know and love from Arc'teryx. Simple, clean-cut performance wear. It gets the job done for exactly what it's meant to do. Nothing extra, just high-quality materials. Next, we've got the Patagonia Nano Puff here. A little bit more of a regular fit, slightly more loose fitting, you know, easy to move in, solid for like everyday into alpine usage. Again, with it being a synthetic type of insulation, it does better in those alpine conditions where you might get a little bit rainy, wet, snowy, uncontrollable conditions. But, you know, just hand feel here, there's a lot less insulation in this. I can feel that I'm not as hot in this jacket. It fits very well. It's less snug than the Cerium jacket, but definitely just covers me everywhere I need to go. There's no snags or no weird feeling as I'm moving my shoulders up, so this would be good for ice climbing or rock climbing, you know, really good where you need to be doing a lot of hip and shoulder articulation and movement. So it's not gonna snag up anywhere. You know, none of these jackets really will. They're all top of the line for what they do. But yeah, you know, this is just a little bit more roomy, a lot better as like an everyday jacket as well, but definitely more performance oriented for the wetter conditions. And you know, this has those two front pockets right here, but the inside of this jacket also has this little pocket for, you know, this is an iPhone 14, 13, I don't know, it's not the biggest one, but it fits nice and snug right in there. And I've still got some room for, you know, another wallet, keys, you get the Garmin InReach in there, snack pocket, really anything like that. But again, nothing too crazy. It's got the cinch on the bottom here, but not a ton of extra pockets. Again, these performance pieces are all about simplicity and getting the job done. So that really does that. Just very comfortable, but definitely a little bit more roomy than the Cerium. Next up here, we've got the Microlight Alpine from Rab. You know, it's a little bit more tighter cut. I can feel that as I'm moving a little bit around here. There's a little bit of snugness on my shoulders. Something to notice about all of Rab's equipment is they have the zipper on the opposite side, just because they're over, you know, in the UK, so that's just something to get used to. So I'm zipping this up on the left side instead of the right side in this jacket. But again, man, really comfortable, cozy jacket. It doesn't have a lot of lift when I move my shoulders up. So again, for like shoulder articulation for ice climbing and rock climbing, it's definitely gonna be a super solid option for that upward movement. But where I do feel it is side to side. So if I'm ever doing anything where I'm making this kind of a movement or crossing over for any reason, I can definitely feel a little bit of more snugness on the back of this jacket compared to the Cerium and the Nano Puff. So this is a large, again, I'm 6 foot 180, and this is the most snug of all the three jackets, so it fits the tightest. This jacket is providing more insulation qualities than the Nano Puff, I would say. I'm definitely warmer than I was in the Nano Puff, but I'm not as warm as I was in the Cerium, and that makes sense. 850 fill down, 700 fill down, and synthetic insulation. I'm just gonna keep going back to that just to put that point across in this video. And then as we look at this jacket, definitely a little bit more pocket oriented. So we've got those front two hand pockets here. We've got a two-sized hand pocket, chest pocket right there, two hands on the front, and then on the inside, no pockets. So that's pretty nice and simple. Something nice here on the Rab jackets, you can see this transition from like high vis yellow to gray. This is a little bit more soft and more comfortable here. So there's definitely gonna be less issues side to side as you're moving your head, like articulating your neck as you're moving around for any activities that you're getting into. And then this one does come with a really nice hood. It's got that helmet compatible hood here. You can see it's got like that stiff brim. So if you're utilizing this with or without a helmet, it's gonna provide a little bit of sun protection and do a good job of staying on that helmet and not constantly blowing off when it's windy. And then we also have the cinch straps here in the hood to make that even a little bit better. Ow, just poked myself in the eye with that thing. But yeah, I would say, you know, definitely the tightest of the three jackets, but definitely a little bit more performance oriented and a little bit more attention to detail for especially the hood. It's got you covered in situations where you're gonna be doing some alpine, ice climbing, rock climbing, mountaineering, that type of thing. Does a helmet fit under all of these jackets? And the answer is yes. You know, I touched on it a little bit with this Rab jacket, but with these all being kind of performance oriented, ice climbing, mountaineering, kind of backcountry oriented pieces, yes, they all have a hood. My Cerium doesn't have a hood. I have the non-hooded version, but we do have the hooded version for sale on our website. So yes, they're all helmet compatible. You know, some people call it the storm hood or whatever, but they all sit nicely and orient well around a helmet. So super important. So now, you know, we've touched on it a little bit, but durability and packability. The Nano Puff and the Microlight from Rab and Patagonia respectively both use tougher outer shells, so they are more abrasion resistant. You can really drag them around the camp or on some granite or sandstone walls without really stressing too much. But like I said, that face fabric on the Cerium is really, really thin. It is the most fragile of all three of these jackets, which is why mine is covered up with tape in a lot of different areas. I was losing some feathers coming out of there, but that's because I was beating it up, as I tend to do with all of my stuff. That's kind of the point of everything I do, is trying to break everything as fast as possible so we can provide the best information for you guys. When it comes to packability though, the Cerium is the most packable. Guess we can go ahead and show you that. My Cerium has this cool little cinch thing in the pocket here where you can go ahead and just jam everything up in there really quickly. You can see this down, super compressible, super fast to get it into here. And then if you're somebody who really likes to stay organized in your backpack, it's good because this comes with its own stuff sack, as you see here. So Cerium, holy crap, Nalgene. Boom, we'll keep that there for comparison's sake. Same deal here with the Rab jacket. Most of these jackets, you know, you just throw it in the pocket. It's nice that the Cerium comes with it, but not super necessary. It's just another added touch that Arc'teryx loves to throw in with all their products. So you can see here, the Rab jacket is, it's a little bit more laborious, and it is crazy how you can tell that difference between the 850 fill and the 700 fill down. This definitely is slightly less compressible. You know, since this doesn't come with its own cinch strap, it just goes into that pocket. It doesn't have like a perfect closure on it. But again, you can see the 800 versus the 700 fill down, slightly bigger. And then we got the Nano Puff last here. So this is synthetic insulation, but it is a lower loft synthetic insulation as well. So where it is slightly less compressible, just as a material, with it being a thinner jacket overall, it's definitely pretty easy to compress. So you can see like the synthetic insulation is definitely less compressible, but with it being a thinner insulation, it's very similar to the Cerium. So here they all are, kind of compared to a Nalgene. They all get pretty dang small. So these jackets are amazing. All of them are great. None of them are a bad choice. That's why we're talking about all three of them today. Just because like the little variables are what is gonna help you make that choice on which of these jacket is the right one for you. So real world recommendations now, ideal settings, where do these jackets shine? We'll just do a quick wrap up and then you can decide from there which one is for you. So the Arc'teryx Cerium here, I would say probably best for alpine climbing, dry winter backpacking, emphasis on dry there, because if it's really dumping snow, this thing's gonna get soaking wet. There's no hydrophobic coating on the outside. It is just 850 fill down. It will not perform. If it gets wet, the down will clump. So, you know, like I said, alpine climbs, really dry backpacking, and for maybe like a mid-layer use under a shell, because the shell will keep you dry, this will keep you warm. For the Microlight Alpine from Rab, you know, this is really like an all-around workhorse of a jacket. Cold mountain conditions when you still need a highly durable jacket that does perform well, not great, but well when it gets wet with that hydrophobic down. You know, this jacket's gonna really keep you warm and keep you slightly more dry. So ice climbing, mountaineering, anything where there's gonna be more unpredictable conditions and you're expecting some water, this is a fantastic choice. And then we have the Patagonia Nano Puff here. You know, shoulder season hikes where you're expecting some moisture, drizzly commutes to work, or any trip where you might get wet, Pacific Northwest. You know, here in the Midwest, our weather's pretty unpredictable. One day it can be 85 and sunny and the next can be 40 and rainy, you never know. So with this being that synthetic insulation, a little bit better, again, like more of an all-around jacket, commuter, biking friendly, Really high performance climbing jacket as well, just because it does a better job with moisture during higher output activities. So yeah, you know, I would say the Nano Puff and the Microlight Alpine, more higher output activities where you're expecting to either sweat or get wet. These two will perform better in those situations. And if you're in a really cold environment that's dry, where you don't expect to get super wet and you don't expect to sweat much because it's so cold, the Cerium will outperform both of these jackets. Definitely because it is the most compressible and it is the warmest of all three of these jackets. So like I said, all three of these jackets are amazing jackets. You really can't go wrong, just depends on when you're gonna use them. And if you want to pick up one of these jackets, definitely go to our website at ridgeandriver.com and use the code YouTube10 for 10% off of your purchase of any of these three jackets or anything on our website. I want to save you some money and help get you outside, so definitely go use that code YouTube10. Thank you so much for watching. Stay warm out there, and we'll see you in the next one. Later.